The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets in the school cafeteria, casting harsh shadows on the linoleum floor slick with spilled milk. Jamie's small frame froze mid-step, his backpack slipping from one shoulder as the chant rose, "Rented Dad! Rented Dad!" A venomous echo from the pack of 8th graders circling him like wolves. Pressed against the cold brick wall outside the serving line. Felt the world tilt? His coffee burning a hole through the styrofoam cup in his fist. Because in that moment, he wasn't just witnessing his boy's humiliation, he was reliving every whispered slur that had ever carved him open. Aiden Harper had never planned on being anyone's father, rented or otherwise. At 28, with a freelance graphic design gig that let him chase sunsets from his beat-up Chevy in the rolling hills of rural Ohio, his life was a careful mosaic of solitude and stolen glances at the rare bar in town that flew a subtle rainbow flag. But then came Jamie, 12 years old and all sharp elbows and guarded eyes. Thrust into Aiden's world by a social worker's clipped voicemail 6 months back, Sarah Whitaker needs a male role model for her son. No strings. Just consistency. Think you can handle that, Sarah? Good, Sarah. She was the kind of woman who looked like she'd been forged in the Rust Belt fires of Cleveland, fierce, unyielding, with laugh lines that hid craters of loss. Her husband had bailed when Jamie was a toddler, chasing some dream in California that dissolved into dust and divorce papers. Though, was the ghost child, little Ellie, Sarah's daughter, gone at 4 to a leukemia that ate her from the inside out. Aiden had read the file before the first meeting, the clinical words blurring into something human and heartbreaking. Sarah hadn't dated since, hadn't let anyone close enough to see the fractures. Jamie was her anchor, her everything, and when school counselors flagged his isolation, skipping recess, sketching solitary figures in the margins of his notebooks, she'd swallowed her pride and signed up for the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Except in their case, it felt less like mentorship and more like a quiet adoption of the heart. Their first outing was a disaster wrapped in good intentions, a Reds baseball game in Cincinnati, the air thick with hot dogs and hope. Jamie had sat rigid in the bleachers, cap pulled low, answering Aiden's questions in monosyllables. Favorite player? Aiden tried, waving a foam finger like an idiot. Don't have one, Jamie muttered, eyes on the diamond. By the 7th inning stretch, though, something cracked. A foul ball rocketed their way, and Aiden lunged, snagging it one-handed with a whoop that startled them both. Jamie's laugh bubbled up then, like water from a cracked pipe. Aiden tossed him the ball, their fingers brushing, and in that instant, the boy looked up with eyes the color of storm clouds, whispering, "You're not like the others. Not like the others." Aiden knew what that meant. In a town where family values, sermons dotted the AM radio dial, his own truth was a secret he guarded like a bruise. Out in the world, he was Aiden the designer, Aiden the volunteer, the guy who fixed neighbors' fences without asking for a dime. But in the dim glow of his apartment, scrolling Grindr on restless nights, he was the man craving touch, connection, the kind that didn't come with asterisks. He'd come out at 18, right after his own folks split, dad to a bottle, mom to a new life in Florida. No parades, no pride flags, just a quiet nod from his best friend and a lifetime of what-ifs. Being gay in the heartland wasn't a battle, it was a negotiation. Every day a fresh treaty with the world. Sarah had clocked it early, Not with judgment, but with a wry smile over coffee at her kitchen table, Formica scarred from years of solo suppers. "Jamie's lucky," she'd said, stirring sugar into her mug until it threatened to overflow. "Most guys would have ghosted by now." "You stick," Aiden had shrugged, heat creeping up his neck, but her eyes held no probe, no pity. Just gratitude, laced with something deeper, envy, maybe, for the ease he carried his loneliness with. They fell into a rhythm after that, Aiden picking Jamie up for weekend hikes in Hocking Hills, teaching him to skip stones across the Scioto River, while Sarah worked doubles at the hospital as an ER nurse. Texts flew between them, logistics mostly, but threaded with warmth. "Kid won't shut up about that meteor shower you showed him," she'd message at midnight. "Your magic. Harp. Magic. If only." The taunts started subtle. Whispers in the hallways that Aiden caught on drop-offs. "Who's the weirdo with the flannel? Think he's Jamie's new daddy?" But the cafeteria incident was a gut punch. The kind that leaves you gasping on the floor. He'd shown up unannounced that day. A rare free afternoon. Armed with permission slips for a field trip to the Air Force Museum. Hiding in the shadows wasn't his style. But instinct kicked in, better to assess, to protect without hovering. The bully, a stocky kid named Tyler with a buzz cut and a father's beer gut already forming, had shoved Jamie's tray, sending apple slices skittering like escaped prisoners. The laughter swelled, the idle wave, and Jamie just stood there, fists balled, tears carving tracks through the freckles on his cheeks. Aiden moved before he thought, striding in like a storm front, his voice low thunder. "Hey. Back off." The room hushed, forks pausing midair, as he knelt to Jamie's level, ignoring the stares boring into his back. "You okay, bud?" Jamie nodded, but his eyes screamed betrayal, not at the bullies, but at the world that made this normal. Aiden gathered the spilled food with deliberate calm, stacking it like it was no big deal, all while Tyler smirked from the sidelines. "What's it to you? Rented dad? Dollar store discount." The words landed like shrapnel, and Aiden felt them lodge deep, but he straightened, meeting the kid's gaze with steel. "It's everything to me. And if you touch him again, you'll answer to more than words." He walked Jamie out, arms slung casual over the boy's shoulders, the cafeteria door swinging shut on the murmurs. In the parking lot, under a sky bruised with November clouds, Jamie finally broke. "Why do they say that? You're not. You're real." Aiden pulled him into a hug, the kind that says "I see you" without saying it, and whispered, "Because they're scared of what they don't understand." "But we're not, Timmy. We're solid." That night, over pizza at Sarah's, extra cheese, no anchovies, Aiden spilled it all, the raw edges unfiltered. Sarah's face tightened, her fork stabbing a pepperoni like it owed her money. "Those little shits. I'll march in tomorrow." But Aiden shook his head. "No. Let me handle it." With him, she relented, her hand finding his across the table, a squeeze that lingered. "You're more than rented, Aiden. You're family. Family." The word hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire, warming and choking all at once. It was the spark that ignited something Aiden hadn't dared name, a pull toward permanence, toward building instead of drifting. And that's when Ethan walked into the frame, uninvited and inevitable. It happened at the school's fall festival. A chaotic sprawl of hay bales and funnel cakes under strings of chili pepper lights. Aiden was manning the dunk tank for the PDA, Jamie egging him on with gleeful accuracy from the sidelines. Small. Mr. Harper. One more. The splash was cold glory. The crowd whooping as Aiden surfaced, grinning like a drowned fool. Then, from the judging table, a voice cut through, 10 for form, but 0 for dignity. Aiden blinked water from his lashes, locking eyes with the man, with ink-black hair and a jaw that could cut glass, dressed in a corduroy jacket that screamed adjunct professor. Ethan Caldwell, 8th grade English teacher. The one who'd pulled Jamie aside after the cafeteria blow-up, murmuring encouragements Aiden had only heard secondhand. Their first real conversation was over lukewarm cider by the fire pit, Jamie off chasing glow sticks with friends. Heard you went full gladiator in the SIF, Ethan said, his smile crooked, revealing a dimple that hit Aiden like a sucker punch. Brave. Or stupid, Aiden laughed, shaking off the chill. Both. Name the category. Ethan's eyes, a stormy blue, held his a beat too long. Protector. It's rare. They talked books, Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. The way it gutted you with its quiet rage, and Aiden felt seen, not as the rented oddity, but as the man who'd memorized constellations to impress a kid who stared at stars like they owed him answers. By the end of the night, numbers exchanged, Aiden drove home with his pulse a drumbeat, the what-ifs blooming like fireflies. Texts started tentative, Ethan's quip about a student's essay on the tragedy of socks in the dryer, Aiden's reply with a meme of a cat in existential crisis. Coffee turned to walks along the Olentangy River, where leaves crunched underfoot and Ethan's hand brushed his once, twice, accidental until it wasn't. The kiss came on a Tuesday, rain-slicked and urgent, against the door of Ethan's craftsman bungalow on the edge of town. I've wanted this since the dunk tank, Ethan breathed, fingers threading through Aiden's wet hair. Aiden pulled back just enough to search his face, open, hungry, no shadows. Then why wait? Because in Ethan's arms, the world felt less like a negotiation and more like home. But homes have foundations, and Aiden's was cracking before he knew it. Sarah noticed first, her texts laced with emojis that danced too bright. Jamie says Mr. Caldwell's cool. Spill. Aiden deflected with jokes. But guilt nod, Sarah, who trusted him with her son, her scars. And Ethan? He was a revelation, 32. Out since college, with a past that included a bad breakup in Pittsburgh and a sister's wedding where he'd been the uninvited plus one. They built slow dinners at Aiden's, where Ethan burned toast but aced spaghetti, lazy Sundays sketching portraits, Ethan's pencil tracing the curve of Aiden's collarbone. You're beautiful when you're unguarded, he'd murmur. And Aiden believed him, the loneliness ebbing like tide. Yet the taunts lingered, a low hum under the surface. Jamie came home one afternoon, backpack thudding to the floor, his sketchpad clutched like a shield. Drew this for you, it was Aiden, half smiling under a sky full of shooting stars. Labeled, My Real Dad. Aiden's throat closed, and he framed it that night, hanging it above his desk. But at school, the whispers evolved. Jamie's got a gay rented dad and his teacher boyfriend. Freak show. Tyler's crew amplified it. Notes slipped into lockers. Graffiti on the bathroom stall. Harper equals homo helper. Aiden confronted the principal, a doughy man named Hargrove with a cross on his desk and platitudes on his lips. Boys will be boys, Mr. Harper. Toughen up. Ethan's support was fire, storming in with Jamie's counselor, demanding assemblies on bullying. But the damage seeped. Jamie withdrawing, his laughs rarer than eclipses. And then, the betrayal, not from Ethan. Not yet. But from within. A secret Aiden unearthed like a landmine. It was a crisp October evening. Sarah calling in tears after a shift that ended with a car wreck and too much blood. Can you watch him? I need air. Aiden arrived to find Jamie curled on the couch. Remote flickering shadows across his face. Mom's sad again, he said flatly. Aiden nodded, pulling him close. About Ellie? Jamie's nod was tiny. She dreams about her. Says I'm not enough to fill the hole. The words were a knife twist. But what came next gutted deeper. Rifling through mail for takeout menus, Aiden found it, a faded photo, tucked in an envelope from a Pittsburgh lawyer. Tiny and fierce, with Sarah's eyes and Ethan's dimple. The pieces didn't fit at first, jagged and mocking in the lamplight. Aiden stared at the photo, Ethan's younger face beaming beside a toddler Sarah, their arms linked in a way that screamed blood, not just bond. Siblings? No, the dates on the back chronicled a romance. Brief and blistering, ended when Ethan came out and Sarah spiraled into grief after Ellie's diagnosis. We were kids, Ethan would later confess. Voice raw over whiskey in Aiden's kitchen. College sweethearts. She loved me enough to try. Even after. But it broke us both when Ellie. He trailed off. The unspoken hanging like fog. Sarah had never mentioned it. Her file a sanitized vault of loss. Betrayal? Not quite. Secrets have layers. And this one was buried under years of what could have beens. But it stung. Sharp as Tyler's sneers. Because Aiden had fallen hard. Building castles on sands he didn't question. He confronted Ethan the next morning. Dawn painting the river gold as they walked. Words tumbling like loose gravel. Why didn't you say about Sarah? Ellie. Ethan's face crumpled. That dimple inverting into a trench. It wasn't mine to tell. She asked me to stay away after the funeral, too much pain. When I transferred here last year, I thought, fresh start. For all of us. Aiden stopped, the path crunching under his boots. And me? Am I just the convenient detour? Ethan's hand shot out, gripping his arm. No. Good. You're the first real thing since. Everything. The kiss that followed was desperate. A dam breaking. But trust is fragile. And Aiden felt the fissures spread. Sarah found out piecemeal. Pieced together from Jamie's innocent chatter, Mr. Caldwell said hi to Mom at pickup, and her own ghosts stirring. She cornered Aiden at the diner on Route 23. Booths sticky with syrup ghosts. Her eyes red-rimmed from another graveyard shift. Ethan. My Ethan? The words were a whisper hiss. And Aiden nodded, shame hot in his chest. I didn't know. Not till last night. She left, bitter as black coffee. Of course you didn't. I'm the villain in my own story, clinging to a man who chose his truth over my wreckage. Aiden reached for her hand, but she pulled back. Don't. Does Jamie know? No, Aiden said firmly. And he won't. Not like this. Sarah's gaze softened. Fractured light. You're good for him. Better than I deserve. But Ethan? He's poison ivy, beautiful until you bleed. The weeks blurred into a tense waltz. Aiden juggling loyalties like hot coals. With Jamie, he doubled down, building a fort in the backyard from scrap lumber. Telling stories of his own rented childhood summers with an uncle who taught him to fish. Family's not blood, he'd say, hammering nails side by side. It's the people who show up. Jamie absorbed it like parched earth. His sketches evolving, now trios under starry skies. And a shadowy third figure with Ethan's profile. School simmered. The bullying a low boil, Tyler cornered Jamie in gym. Whispering, your rented dad's banging the teacher. Whole town's talking. Jamie shoved back, earning detention. And Aiden's blood boiled when Ethan related. His knuckles white on the steering wheel. This ends now, Ethan vowed. But his eyes held fear, not of the kids, but of the unraveling. The romance, meanwhile, deepened into something fierce and flawed. Nights at Ethan's, tangled in sheets that smelled of cedar and regret. Aiden traced the scars on Ethan's chest from a childhood accident. Whispering, tell me everything. Ethan did. In fits, the night he left Sarah, packing a duffel under street lamps, the funeral where he stood in the back. Anonymous in black, the years teaching in shadows, mentoring boys like Jamie to armor their hearts. I see her in him, Ethan admitted once. Postlove. Voice muffled against Aiden's neck. The fire makes me want to be better. Aiden held him tighter. The betrayal's echo fading into empathy. They were all survivors, stitched from the same ragged cloth. But conflict brewed darker. Sarah withdrew. Her texts curt. Her hugs for Jamie mechanical. One evening, after Aiden dropped him off, she lingered on the porch, cigarette glowing like a fallen star. I need you to stop seeing him. Aiden's stomach dropped. Sarah, for Jamie. The boy's confused enough without this. Triangle. Her voice cracked, revealing the chasm. Ellie would have been 12 this year. Same grade. And every time I see you too, laughing like you own the world, it rips her open again. Aiden reeled. The air thick with unsaid accusations. I'm not replacing her. Or you. I'm just. Here. She stubbed the smoke. Eyes glistening. Maybe that's the problem. You're too good, Aiden. And it hurts to watch. The high school talent show loomed. A mandatory circus of awkward adolescence. And Jamie signed up for spoken word. His idea? Born from Ethan's class on poetry as protest. Aiden helped polish it. Nights at the kitchen table with highlighters and half-eaten subs. Jamie's words raw as winter wind. Lines about borrowed fathers and unbreakable bonds. Ethan reviewed drafts too. His red pen gentle. And Sarah attended rehearsals. Her silence a wall. Tension coiled like a spring. Rumors swirled. Tyler's dad. A local cop with a badge and a bias. Pulling Ethan aside for a chat about inappropriate relationships. Aiden's designs for the program cover went unsigned. Whispers of agenda pushing from the PDA. Then the fracture hit. A week before the show, Ethan confessed over takeout Thai. Eyes downcast, Sarah asked me to leave town. Said if I don't, she'll pull Jamie from the program. From you. Aiden's fork clattered. What? That's blackmail. It's grief, Ethan countered. Voice hollow. She thinks I'm stealing her second chance. The argument erupted, accusations flying like shrapnel. You knew this would blow up? Aiden shouted. And you dove in anyway? Because what? Pity fuck for the rented dad. Ethan's face drained of color. That's not fair. I love you. Aiden. But Jamie. He's her line in the sand. Aiden stormed out. The door slamming like a guillotine. Rain lashing his truck as he drove blind. Was a thief, stealing breath. Sanity. The illusion of control. Reconciliation came halting. In the quiet hours before dawn. Ethan at his door. Soaked and shivering. Words spilling, I told her no. I'm staying. For him. For us. They collapsed together. Bodies a map of apologies. But the seed of doubt rooted deep. Jamie sensed the shift. His poem sharpening into something weaponized. Verses laced with, they call him rented. But he's the glue. Aiden read it aloud one night. Voice breaking on the line, a mother's loss can't eclipse a son's gain. Jamie hugged him fierce. This is for you. So they get it. The night of the show arrived. Gymnasium humming with folding chairs and fluorescent hum. The air electric with nerves. Sarah sat front row. Flanked by aunts. Her face a mask of poise. Ethan hovered stage left. Clipboard in hand. Shooting Aiden a look that said hold on. Jamie took the mic. Spotlights carving him small but unyielding. The crowd a sea of expectant faces, Tyler's smirk prominent. Hargrove's nod benign. This is for the ones who build families from fragments, Jamie began. Voice steady as a heartbeat. In the back with the volunteers. Felt his chest tighten. Ethan's hand finding his in the shadows. Jamie's words unfurled like a banner in battle. Each syllable a stone lobbed at the giants in the room. They laugh in the lunch line. Call him rented like he's a suit from the thrift store. Temporary and cheap. But I've rented stars from him, nights under the Big Dipper where he points out Orion like it's a secret code just for us. The gym rustled. A collective shift. Tyler's smirk faltering as Jamie's gaze swept the crowd. Landing unerringly on his mother. Aiden's breath hitched. Ethan's fingers squeezing tighter. A lifeline in the dim. He shows up when dads don't, fishes me out of rivers. Patches knees without questions. Says love's not a lease, it's a foundation. Poured slow and deep. Murmurs rippled. Parents leaning forward. Hargrove's pen pausing mid-note. Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. Knuckles bone white. But her eyes, her eyes were locked on her son. Drinking him in like rain after drought. Jamie pressed on. Voice gaining steel. Mom lost my sister to a monster in her blood. A thief that stole her light before she could shine. Ellie would have chased fireflies with us. Sketched the same crooked moons. But loss doesn't leave room, it carves space. And Aiden? He filled a corner. Not the whole. With stories and strength. Not rented. Real. The room held its breath. A suspended gasp. As Jamie's voice cracked on Ellie's name, the first time he'd said it aloud in public. A gift wrapped in grief. Sarah's dam broke then. Silent at first, a tear tracing her cheek. Then a sob wrenching free. Shoulders heaving as the weight of years cascaded. Aiden watched. Heart in his throat. As the woman who'd armored herself against the world unraveled. Beautiful and brutal, Whispers turned to sniffles. A woman 2 rows back, Mrs. Delaney, whose own boy had drowned in the quarry last spring, clutched her husband's hand, tears mirroring Sarah's. Ethan's whisper was hot against Aiden's ear. He's brilliant. Like you. Jamie rapped with a line that echoed like thunder. So here's to the rented dads. The borrowed brothers. The ones who prove family isn't born, it's chosen. Fierce and forever. Applause erupted. Thunderous and tear-streaked. Parents surging to their feet as Jamie bowed. Flushed and triumphant. Scampering offstage into Ethan's waiting arms. Aiden moved through the crowd like a ghost. Congratulations blurring. Until he reached Sarah. She rose, face streaked, and pulled him into an embrace that smelled of lavender and salt. You gave him that, she whispered, voice muffled against his shoulder. The words. The worth. Aiden held her. The pieces slotting, not perfect, but whole. We all did, he murmured. Ellie included. Backstage chaos reigned, hugs from underclassmen. Tyler slinking by with downcast eyes. Hargrove muttering about inspirational content for the newsletter. Ethan caught Aiden's gaze over the melee. A smile soft as dawn, and pulled him aside into the prop closet, curtains and cardboard swords a flimsy veil. Proud of you, Ethan said. But Aiden shook his head. Of him. Maybe. Their kiss was slow, seasoned with relief. The betrayal's scar tissue stretching but not tearing. Sarah found them minutes later, Jamie in tow. Her expression a complex weave of resignation and release. Tomorrow. All of us. It wasn't absolution, but it was a door cracked open. The aftermath hummed with aftershocks. School shifted, assemblies on empathy. Tyler's dad dragged in for a seminar. Whispers evolving from malice to myth. Jamie's poem blew the roof off. Sarah invited Ethan to dinner. A tentative olive branch over meatloaf and mashed potatoes. The air thick with unspoken histories. I was wrong, she admitted. Passing the gravy. Her eyes meeting his for the first time without daggers. Pushing you away. It was fear. Of losing more. Ethan nodded. Voice steady. I get it. I lived it. Jamie bridged them. Chattering about haikus. Oblivious to the mending. Aiden watched. Chest full. The rented label dissolving like mist. But romance, Aiden learned, thrives in the fractures. Within. Nights deepened into confessions. Ethan's hidden journal from Pittsburgh days. Pages of doubt and desire. Aiden's own buried letter to his father. Pleading for understanding. They drove to Lake Erie one weekend. Jamie bundled in the back with a thermos of cocoa. Skipping stones until dusk bled purple. This is it, Ethan said later. As they lay on a blanket, Jamie asleep in the truck. The life we build. Aiden traced constellations on his palm. The stars winking approval. No rents. Just ours. Yet conflict lingered. A shadow puppeteer. Sarah's healing was jagged, therapy sessions spilling into late-night calls to Aiden. Her voice a tightrope of progress and plummet. Ellie's birthday next month, she'd say. What if I forget her laugh? Aiden listened, anchoring. But the pull tested him. Ethan's patience fraying at the edges. You're her therapist now? He snapped one night. After Aiden canceled a date for an emergency ice cream run. Or just the fixer? Aiden recoiled. The old wound of convenient throbbing. It's family. Ethan. Message. Real. The fight simmered into silence. Days of clipped texts and avoided eyes. Until Jamie intervened, slipping a note into Aiden's glove box. Don't rent out your happy. We need it. Reconciliation came at the river. Ethan waiting with a six-pack and apology etched in gravel. I'm scared, he admitted, skipping a stone that danced 4 times. Of competing with ghosts. Hers. Aiden sat beside him, knees touching. Then don't. We're the living proof, love doesn't evict, it expands. They talked till stars pricked the sky. Hands entwined. The current murmuring forgiveness. Back home, Sarah texted a photo, her and Jamie at the cemetery. Wildflowers on Ellie's stone. Caption, room for more. Winter crept in. Snow dusting the hills like powdered sugar. And with it, a new rhythm. Aiden's designs landed a local ad campaign, billboards of Midwestern families in all their patchwork glory, and Ethan coaxed him into co-teaching a workshop on storytelling. Jamie as their pint-sized muse. Dates wove through it, stolen hours at the drive-in, where they necked like teens during the rom-com climax, quiet mornings with Ethan's head on Aiden's chest. Planning a spring trip to the Smokies. Sex was a language they fluent at. Bodies mapping vulnerabilities, Ethan's need to be held post-nightmare. Aiden's craving for whispered affirmations in the dark. But the climax brewed in subtlety. A storm gathering over the horizon. Tyler's bullying escalated. Not at school but online. An anonymous Snapchat group. Whitaker weirdos, doxing Jamie's sketches. Mocking Aiden's fag dad vibes. It hit Aiden like a sucker punch. Scrolling in the dead of night. Ethan snores a distant comfort. He woke Sarah at dawn. Her face ashen as they scrolled together. This ends, she growled. Dialing the sheriff, Tyler's dad be damned. Ethan rallied the faculty. Evidence compiled. But the damage etched deep, Jamie's smiles dimmed. His poem notebook gathering dust. Aiden confronted it head-on. Driving Jamie to the quarry's edge, one of the few spots raw enough for truths. They don't define us, he said. Arm around the boy's shoulders. Wind whipping their scarves. But it hurts. Let it. Jamie nodded. Tears freezing on his lashes. What if they tell everyone about you and Mr. See? About this? Aiden's heart clenched. Then we own it. Proudly. That night. Over hot chocolate laced with marshmallows. Jamie asked the question Aiden dreaded. Are you gay? Aiden? For real. The air stilled. And Aiden breathed deep. Yeah. But. And it's part of me. Like your art. Nothing to hide. Jamie's grin was sunrise. Mr. C2. Aiden laughed. Relief flooding. Yeah. We're figuring it. Sarah's reaction, when Jamie spilled at breakfast, was a masterclass in grace under fire. As long as he treats you right, she said, ruffling Jamie's hair. Then fixing Aiden with a look that said we're good. But the group chat festered. Leaks hitting the local Facebook, speculation on teacher-student drama, Hargrove's inbox flooding with complaints. Ethan faced the board. Voice unyielding, this is about protection. Not politics. Aiden stood beside him. Hand brushing in solidarity. The rented dad no more. The breaking point came mid-February. A town hall called in the library's drafty hall. Parents packed shoulder to shoulder. air thick with coffee and suspicion. Tyler's dad rose first, badge gleaming, ranting about traditional values under siege. Murmurs swelled. But Sarah stood, voice ablade. My son was called worthless because his family looks different. My daughter died, and I rebuilt with help, not judgment. Aiden's more father than some blood ties I've known. Applause scattered. Then built. Mrs. Delaney adding her voice, lost my boy to that water. Wouldn't wish isolation on anyone. Ethan spoke next, quoting Jamie's poem. His eyes finding Aiden's in the crowd, a beacon. The hall thrummed with uneasy alliance. Voices overlapping in a chorus of half-formed empathy. But Aiden felt the undercurrent, eyes on him. The outsider. The one who dared to love openly in their shadowed corners. As the meeting dissolved into coffee clutches, Hargrove pulled him aside, mustache twitching. Stirred the pot? Harper. But effective. It was as close to praise as the man got. And Aiden nodded, exhaustion settling like snow. Ethan waited by the truck, breath fogging the air. We did it, he said, pulling Aiden close. But Aiden's smile was wry. For now. Storms pass, but they circle back. Spring thawed the literal and figurative ice. Dogwoods blooming pink defiance along the riverbanks. Jamie's confidence bloomed too, submitting his poem to a statewide contest, earning honorable mention and a reading at the Columbus Library. Aiden drove them, Ethan shotgun with maps and mixtapes, Sarah trailing in her Civic, a caravan of chosen kin. The event was a whirlwind, spotlights on a stage that smelled of old books. Jamie's voice carrying to the rafters. The audience, a mix of tweens and lit profs, leaning in like conspirators. Backstage, Sarah hugged him fierce, whispering, Ellie's proud. For the first time, Aiden saw her laugh unguarded, the sound like bells after rain. Their lives intertwined deeper, threads weaving a tapestry flawed but vibrant. Aiden and Ethan moved in together, a fixer-upper Victorian on Elm Street. Creaky floors and a porch swing for stargazing. Sarah helped paint the kitchen sage green, Jamie directing with paint-smeared authority, the air alive with banter and brushstrokes. Dates evolved, Ethan surprising Aiden with a weekend in Chicago. Skyline views and deep dish that stained their shirts. Bodies rediscovering each other in a hotel room overlooking the lake. Marry me, Ethan murmured one dawn. Ring box hidden in the nightstand, a simple band, tungsten tough as their love. Aiden's yes was breathless. Tear-streaked, the world narrowing to the man who'd chosen him, scars and all. But humanity's arc bends toward light through shadow, and theirs wasn't without eclipse. Sarah's grief resurfaced in waves, Ellie's would-be 13th birthday. A quiet picnic at the gravesite where she broke again. Jamie holding one hand, Aiden the other. I thought I'd never heal, she confessed later, over wine on their new porch. But watching you three, it's proof. Lost carves, but it doesn't close. Ever the bridge. Shared his own regrets. I left too soon. Back then. Afraid of the mess. Sarah's forgiveness was a gift. Hard one, we were kids playing house. Now we're adults building homes. Jamie's bullies faded into footnotes. Tyler transferred after his dad's suspension. The group chat deleted under legal heat, but the real conflict lingered internal. A test of endurance. Aiden's freelance dried up midsummer. A client citing family distractions in an email that reeked of bias. Doubt crept. Was he enough? Ethan sensed it. Countering with job leads at the community college, adjunct design prof. Sharing office hours with his fiancée. We're a team, Ethan insisted. Over late-night ramen. Aiden leaned in. Gratitude a bomb. Yeah. We are. The wedding was small. Quintessentially American heartland. A backyard affair under fairy lights. Hay bales for pews. Sarah officiating with a borrowed minister's stole. Her vows for them laced with poetry. Jamie rang a cowbell as ringbearer, grinning ear to ear, while Mrs. Delaney strung wildflowers, her own healing a quiet witness. Vows exchanged, Ethan's, I choose you. Every shadowed corner, ends, you make the rented feel eternal. The kiss drew cheers, Jamie whooping loudest, and as they danced to an old Springsteen track, sweaty. Perfect, Aiden felt the hook of their story release. The pain transmuted to purpose. Months later, at the school assembly Jamie emceed, now a confident teen with sketches sold at the county fair, Sarah took the mic unscripted. 2 years ago, I lost more than a child, I lost hope. But this boy, she nodded to Jamie, then to Aiden and Ethan, entwined in the front row. He found us anchors. You weren't rented, you were revelation. Tears flowed freely. The gym a sea of nods. And Aiden pulled her into the family huddle after. Whispers of, we're just getting started. In the end, it wasn't happily ever after, no tidy bows on grief's ragged edges, but a human ever after, messy, laced with laughter and the occasional storm. Once a drifter in flannel and solitude. Now anchored a constellation, husband to the teacher who'd seen his soul. Father in all but blood to the boy who'd named him real. Ally to the mother who'd mended through mirrors of loss. Under Ohio stars. With Ethan's head on his shoulder and Jamie's snores from the guest room. Aiden whispered to the night, this is ours. Solid. And in the quiet, the world whispered back, enough.